could feel beauty rising.
Hi, my name is Sue Skaskio with Vermont Volunteer Services for Animals Humane Society, and welcome to our show, For the Animals. Today our guest is Lynda Graham Barber and her dog Biscuit. Thank you for coming down.
Thanks for having me, Sue.
You traveled far.
We did, the three of us.
2 hours from the Northeast Kingdom?
Right on the border. We live on the border. Actually, our land is the Canadian border, so I can put 1 foot in Canada and 1 in the U.S.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of neat.
Someday I want to talk to you about the benefits and the disadvantages of that.
Yeah, they're both.
Really?
There are pros and cons, yes.
Wow. Well, I live right on Woodstock and Bridgewater.
Oh, okay,
So-
but you don't have the Homeland Security helicopters.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, how interesting. We have
It
to have
is
this
an international
conversation.
border, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You have a really extensive bio, so I'd like to read that. In Lynda's 40 years in publishing, you sat on both sides of the desk as an editor and a freelance writer. You've written 14 books, most of them for children, and we were going through them before, and I love them. I'd like to pick them up later. In your most recent book, you endeavored to tell both a good story and heighten awareness about humane animal issues. I guess you've done that in a few books.
Yes.
Okay. After 28 years of dividing your time between New York City and Vermont, you located permanently to Vermont's Northeast Kingdom, where you share a tiny stone cottage with her husband and rescue dog, Biscuit. Right? I'm cute. Your animal rescue work began in 1967 on a snowy fire escape in Brooklyn and continues now in Vermont with your volunteer work for local animal organizations. Your most recent book, Coco Cat, Inside and Out. I love this book. Printed by Griffin
Press.
and which donates a portion of books' profits to shelters and animal rescue societies. I have a cat like that. That's just
Great.
like my cat Andy.
Beautiful eyes.
Yeah, except Andy's are gold. You grew up in a suburb outside of Pittsburgh where every cat and dog you encountered had an owner and was properly fed. When you moved to Brooklyn, New York in the late 60s, as a new bride, you met head-on the magnitude of urban stray population. Yeah.
Yeah.
You lived in an apartment near a college surrounded by a tall, ornamental iron fence, and it was this fence that at least once a month you found an animal tied. They had you pegged.
It's heartbreaking.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Sometimes with a note, sometimes with a bowl of food, but always with ID removed. Before you set out on your daily jog, you filled a pack with food, of collars and leashes. Many of these walks ended up with taking a dog or cat to a local vet, who claimed Lynda and her right-hand gal pal, Diane, made it possible for his two children to attend college. Did they name the room after you? You worked for a time with a local animal rescue group and volunteered in Manhattan walking dogs at the Humane Society of New York's Adoption Center. She and her husband Ray adopted many of their cats and local rescues. At one point, they harbored 4 dogs, 3 cats, a poisoned seagull, and a frog with a broken leg in your 1-bedroom apartment. I have friends in New York. Do you know Neji? By any chance? Oh, my God. We've got to talk about her.
Oh.
After a decade working in various editorial departments of New York publishers, you gave up your day job in children's publishing and set out on a freelance career. You wrote for magazines and newspapers, covering everything from cocktails to conversation. Sounds like Sex in the City. From where to get the best margarita in Puerto Vallarta to groups involved in the blossoming environmental movement. Lynda, that sounds so exciting. In New York, you marched in rallies on behalf of wolves, whales, and women's rights.
Yeah, I did it all.
But you kept coming back to the 2 things you love best, animals and children's books. For some 28 years, you and your husband Ray, who illustrated her first children's book, is this the one we were looking at before?
Yes, 1976.
Who Lives Inside?
Who Lives Inside? It's a little guessing game. Lift the flap, guess the animal that lives inside. Yeah.
You know, my daughter is coming back to do preschool. Something like this would be awesome.
Oh, the kids love it. Yeah.
Oh, I'll bet.
They love it in schools.
Who Lives
Yeah.
Inside? Is it still out?
Oh, it's long, long out of print.
Well, what a great one to do a comeback on.
Yes.
So Ray illustrated that, and you divided your time between Brooklyn apartment and 320 acres.
Oh!
Wow. Yeah. It's a lot to post.
Yeah, and it's a lot to manage.
Yeah. And after Ray's sudden death in 1996, Lynda located permanently in Vermont, sharing a small stone cottage with her now husband David and their rescue dog, Biscuit. You volunteer at local cat spay neuter clinic, holding fundraising events for pets, providing ethical treatment for strays, and has served as a foster home for abandoned dogs. Wow. We're kindred spirits.
Yes.
I wish you lived down here, though.
Yeah.
I know. Lynda and I have
emailed for how
yeah,
long?
for a long time, because
so
Linda's
great.
very, politically active and cares about animals. And we've had such a good history in Vermont. We have some really, really good legislators who truly get it when it comes to animal legislation.
Absolutely.
In your neck of the woods,
Yes.
Vince Aluzzi.
We have Vince Aluzzi. He's always there for the animals. Whenever I email him, I get a reply back within 5 minutes.
I know
don't know how he does it.
And you know what? It doesn't matter what time of the day.
You're right.
And do you know now he's running for state auditor?
I did hear that on the radio.
And you know what?
Yeah.
I'll bet you he will be as tenacious as a state auditor.
Keeping an eye on the person and the animals.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
wish him
I
luck.
wish him luck.
I do
It's going to
too.
break my heart not to have him.
He's such a strong voice in the
I know.
Senate.
I know it.
Yeah.
But we do have some really good
Advocates.
people in Montpelier.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, I understand that you've been, from reading this, an advocate for companion animals for, we're going on 4 decades. Can you tell us where it all started?
Well, as you mentioned, I grew up small town, western Pennsylvania, where we trick-or-treated without chaperones,
Right.
and every party involved a piece of Tupperware. So when I came to Brooklyn, I was in for a rude awakening. It was overwhelming, the number of strays I saw on my 4-mile daily jog.
Wow.
It was overwhelming, but I felt I had to do something. And I remember, what is it, Mother Teresa said, if you can't feed 100, then just feed one. So I thought to myself, well, if I can't help 100 dogs, then I can help at least one.
And I know
one dogs or cats. And so that's what I did. I set out with the backpack, and then I found my friend, and on it went.
So that was how it started, on a snowy...
It started actually with, yes, the cat that came in off the fire escape. I could hear something at the window. It was very cold and snowy. And I opened the window, and there was this black cat. And when he came in, he had the white feet right here with the socks.
Oh, okay.
So we called him Snowflake because it looked as though he'd been walking in snow. And he was an amazing animal. He lived to be 20.
Wow.
Even with chronic cystitis. He was an indoor cat, and he was the first of many.
How old was he when he came to your window?
He was about 7 months, and I'm sure he was born outside.
You
Feral.
know, people love Vermont. I mean, people love winter, and to me, my thoughts go to the animals outside freezing. Who's caught in a culvert because the snowplow's just gone over?
Exactly. I know. It takes away from that sort of Bing Crosby moment,
I
you know,
know.
with the snow when you're in a beautiful inn and watching it fall.
Yeah.
I think of the animals too.
I know.
Absolutely.
Even when I go on vacation, Greg and I, we try to head down to the Caribbean, and we always pack a suitcase full of animal food, medicines, flea, tick, whatever. And that way I just feel like I've done something. Then I can relax and enjoy the beach.
That happened to us in Rio too. The first day we arrive, we're going to a restaurant and getting scraps from the kitchen for the cats.
This is why you have to meet Neji. She's out of New York. And Warren, isn't Neji from Rio?
Oh.
Yes, she has an animal sanctuary down there.
She does.
She does, and Neji actually grew up, she was abandoned by her parents because girls weren't considered, and she lived on the streets under a bridge with the dogs, and the dogs became her family. This woman has been recognized by the mayor of New York City. She's been on Oprah. She has a black belt in karate. She's a remarkable woman.
Okay,
And
this is
it's
starting
Friends
to
of
sound
Strays,
familiar.
right, Warren?
Right.
Friends of Strays in New York.
Oh, yes, I know who she is.
She
In
comes-
fact, my friend Diane, my pal I teamed up with, she knows her.
I can
Oh,
tell.
absolutely.
We have to get Neji up here because I can tell you Neji
wouldn't
stories that would
that
curl
be
your hair.
fun?
Yeah. You know what? We all travel in.
Yes,
And
yes.
I love it.
Right, absolutely.
So you worked along with humane agents, organizations in New York, or did you freelance?
I walked dogs for the Humane Society of New York. I would take them up and down 2nd Avenue. These were dogs up for adoption. I volunteered with Save Our Strays for a while. And then as Diane and I started accumulating dogs and cats, we couldn't keep them all, obviously. So we would go to Bide-A-Wee and beg.
This is all in New York.
And then we would go to the North Shore Animal League in Port Washington and beg. And sometimes they just had no space.
Yeah.
And I remember one time we had 7 dogs locked in a former used car lot. The owner just closed business, left 7 dogs behind a fence to starve to death. We tracked him down.
Oh, I love it.
We got the key. We then had 7 animals to place.
Wow.
It took, we drove 1,500 miles in her battered old Toyota Corolla all through upstate New York. 1,500 miles. We placed every one of them eventually in no-kill shelters.
That's awesome. I hope there was some flashback to that owner of the building.
I do too. Oh,
you know,
it's
that's what
just
drives us
horrendous.
crazy here. We're trying to deal with something right now where 2 puppies were drowned, and the state attorney in Barrie is trying to decide if he wants to prosecute because he can't figure out if that's illegal. It's mind-boggling. Torture is illegal. It's clearly written, so it's. But you know what? My point is, it's all a learning process, and we have to put pressure. If we have awesome laws, which we do in Vermont, and we have some really, really good. Vince, he's a state attorney, and he takes animal cruelty seriously. But when you have another person not deciding if they're going to prosecute, what sort of message does that send? So you know that person who moved out and left 7 dogs. They'll go out and do it somewhere else unless they're held accountable.
Exactly.
So, okay, you've got to have some favorite rescue stories. Can you share some?
Oh, golly. The favorite, well, I have 2 favorites. One is the saddest one, though. Well, no. Noel. We named him Noel because my girlfriend Diane and I were on our way to buy greens. It was Christmas time. In fact, it was my birthday. It was December 12th. We're driving through the Bronx, and we saw a dog in a gutter. And it looked as though he were pawing at some trash. So we thought, well, we always have food in the car. Stopped the car, got out to give the dog food. As we approached him, we realized he was standing guard over the body of a dead dog.
Oh, my God.
He did not want to leave. I don't know how long he'd been there. The dog had been dead for a while. But we got him, we lured him into the car with some smelly, we may have even used cat food.
Yeah.
You know, cat food.
The best
stinky,
bait, I know.
Good bait. We got him into the car, and we named him Noel because it was almost Christmas. We found a foster home for him with Roger, who lived on the next block, and then we placed him. The other one, going into the subway, saw what I thought was a pile of rags, and then it moved. Turned out to be a dog about Biscuit's size that had sarcoptic mange so badly there was not one hair left on its body. It looked like a little pig with a curled tail.
I wonder how many other people saw that, both animals, and just kept going.
The smell was atrocious. I will never forget the smell of that dog. We had 3 dogs in this tiny apartment. The vet said, "You are going to have to be so careful. I mean, your dogs will get this." We rubbed cream into him 3 times a day.
Medicated cream?
He grew up. 2 months later, he had a crop of fur like a chia.
Oh, I love.
And we placed him with a widow, upstate New York, and we called him Metro.
I always have to name my animals after where they came from. Otherwise, when people say, "Do you remember that animal I got 5 years ago because of you?" It's like, no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
but if they say the name, yeah.
Yeah, we had a dog named after Victory Bog because we loved to bird watch in Victory Bog, which is in, we had Augustine because we found her in August, Primavera. We found her on the first day of spring. On and on it goes.
It's the Italian side of New York.
Yes. We lived across the street from a college. And you mentioned about the dogs. I would find them tied to the fence. People thought, and they're not thinking, right? Oh, I'll tie, little Biscuit here. Some poor college students will take pity.
Yeah.
college students can't keep dogs in dormitory
Right.
rooms.
Right.
And they thought they were doing the right thing.
And now when we have shelters that are willing to take animals,
Right.
you know, we still have a kill rate in Vermont, which is unfortunate. But with VSNP
Right.
and spay-neuter clinics, we're trying to
Thank heaven
get...
for VSNP.
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
cannot believe, you know, I volunteer at the clinic, and I would guess 75% of the people who come in to pick up their cats tell me that these cats were dumped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know.
It's
Well,
just appalling.
VSNP, just to put a plug in for that, is the Vermont Spay-Neuter Incentive Program that evolved out of a program that my Humane Society, VBSA, started 30 years ago now. We drafted legislation. John Campbell, who's my senator, tracked him down one evening and said, "Would you do this?" And he said, "Yes." I was like, "Thank you." So he and Vince really worked this legislation. We took and we copied New Hampshire's.
Right.
At that time,
Yeah.
Pamela Dean,
Right.
who is the co-host of this show, and her dad's here today in the audience. We copied their legislation and within one session got it passed, which has now become VSNP. We are nearing our 18,000th voucher that I've signed over the past 7 years. It's
I
great.
keep those vouchers in my apron at the spay-neuter
Thank you.
because people will ask,
Yeah.
and I'll say, rather than say, write to so-and-so, I have it right there.
Yeah,
And
you
I
know
can
what
give
I
it to
found?
them.
A lot of people are asking for rabbits now to be included in the program.
We get
Have
a
you seen-
rabbit every once in a while
Yeah.
at the clinic.
So
right?
if we ever go back, we've got to make sure that we do that. And I'd love to hear from people that have rabbits that would like to get them spayed and neutered. Maybe, you know, if we go back to the rulemaking committee, rabbits should be added.
Absolutely.
So, okay. Have you always written just for children?
No, when I left my day job in publishing, I had no work. I decided to freelance. Well, the part of free that wasn't pleasant was I was free of health insurance and free of a weekly salary.
Yeah, scary, huh?
Which it was scary. But I found that there was a little niche market for nonfiction magazine and newspaper articles. And I found that I had a certain interest and talent in writing nonfiction. So I wrote articles for Ms. on how to fix almost everything.
Really?
I did a piece for Red Book on how to give a carpet the grin test. I started a Victorian decorating magazine with a girlfriend, and then I wrote Kit Furniture because my husband and I loved antiques.
May I see that?
Yeah, and we couldn't afford to buy antiques.
Oh, so this is just about antiques.
No, these are reproductions of antiques, a lot of them that are in the Henry Ford Museum, and they sell them in kit form. So Ray and I ended up putting 38, that's my hands
Kit, how to make them?
together. You buy them unassembled, the
Whoa.
chairs, and we put 38 of these together. That's our kitchen in Brooklyn, our kitchen, our bedroom, and so we put them together. But it all started with a newspaper article in the New York Times. And the publisher called the day they saw the piece in the New York Times and asked if I'd write a book.
I love it.
And I said, sure, the power of the press.
That's right. The power of the pen, absolutely.
Oh, unbelievable. One of the companies told me they had to take on extra workers just to go to the post office to get the mail after their name and address and appeared in the...
Still in publication?
You can get this on Amazon, I know. It was a Literary Guild main selection, and I got on TV with Maury Povich. Maury, I asked him to help me put a piece together. I can still see his pancake makeup dripping into his new shirt.
Unlike here. Turn the air conditioner down.
Yes, no dripping, huh? Just a sweaty dog.
So what inspired you to start writing children's books then, for animals?
I was a children's book editor for 10 years.
Okay.
And then I freelanced, went into the adult world for a while, but my heart was always in children's book.
Right.
And of course, the first book I ever published was, and my late husband did the illustrations, Who Lives Inside, was about animals.
Mm-hmm.
And animals and writing are my two passions. And when I can combine that, there just can't get any better than that.
Wow.
And this book, I found this illustrator in Pratt's sketch class.
Toad or frog?
He was
swamp
only
or bog?
19 years old. I was costume modeling. Beautiful paintings. It's just a very young man. I found him in sketch class, and you know the little balloon goes above a cartoon figure?
Right.
Well, my little balloon above my head said, "This man should illustrate children's books."
These are beautiful.
They're gorgeous. And this, I've had teachers tell me that this book they use in elementary school, teach science, because it's a difference. What's the difference between a toad and a frog? And there are a lot of adults that, actually, that's why I wrote the book.
Right.
I was answering the questions for myself. So it was a fun project. And this one's about where animals sleep in the winter. This is about animal behaviors. This book, actually, I was snowshoeing in Island Pond up in the kingdom, and I found tracks on top of a beaver lodge. And it turns out they were fox tracks, because the fox climbs up on top just to look around. He was spy hopping. And I thought only whales spy hopped. But the fox actually went up so, you know, that he would look around.
No kidding.
And then I saw the tracks going down into the stream, and that's where the otter did his slides. And so I said, okay, the otter is belly flopping, the fox is spy hopping, belly hopping. Oh, what great. And so I said, I must write the book to the title.
Did the same 19-year-old illustrate this one?
He did not, but he went on to illustrate a number of books for that publisher.
These are beautiful. So how do you find illustrators?
Well, the publisher, this my husband illustrated. This I found this man in sketch class at Pratt, but publishers have art departments, and that's what they do. They take texts that they have bought and they team it up with an artist they think that would do justice to the book.
So you don't have to do the whole thing.
Rarely. There are some gifted people, like Maurice Sendak, and there are quite a few, Mo Williams. They write and they illustrate. But most of us have one strength or the other.
My daughter's coming back from California, and she has an idea for a book.
Oh.
I'll have to talk to you about it.
Yes.
Yeah, children's
absolutely.
book.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
She's
Oh,
very
I'd love
much
to
into
hear
animals,
about
too.
I wonder why.
Actually, thanks to Lauren, well, what Lauren experienced, we had the Student Choice for Dissection bill passed, where any student in Vermont must be given an alternative. And that's something we have to look into, because we've gotten a couple of reports from students that they have not been given the option.
Oh.
So that's something that's on
fine.
our...
Yeah,
got to do a little bit more about that.
Absolutely.
So after reading your bio, I had so many questions. I don't know if we'll have time to get to everything, but let's keep trying. Okay, your newest book, Coco Cat Inside Now, what's the story behind its creation?
This had kind of an interesting tripart thing. I walk our dirt roads a lot for exercise and to pick up the odd beer can that I guess people throw out of cars. I can't imagine why.
Well, you know what? A friend of mine told me a long time ago, throw it. This is a long, long time ago. If you throw beer cans out on somebody's lawn, they'll pick them up. If you throw them in woodlots, they don't get picked up.
Okay.
Just telling you.
I pick them up off people's lawns, too.
I know.
At any rate, and my neighbor called me over because she had a bird she wanted me to identify, because she knows I love birds and I bird watch. And there was this beautiful dead chestnut-sided warbler on her front stoop that she said her cat had taken. And, you know, we both kind of boo-hooed, beautiful bird. And on the way home, I kept thinking, oh, that bird, you know, the warblers, they fly like a couple thousand miles down to South America. They go across the Gulf of Mexico, the storms, the wind. Then they come back to Vermont in May to nest. And then, of course, met the fate at the hands of the well-fed house cat. So that was kind of in my mind. Then I went to see my mother in Florida, who at the age of 90 was going through a divorce. And she needed a little help, shall we say. So I went to a conference and met Griffin Press. And I overheard someone say, someone should write a book about a cat and the advantages of keeping a cat inside. So there it is.
So was Coco an inside cat?
This is a story about a cat that narrowly escapes. Well, wants to get outside to see what it's like in the big bad world, and finds out there's lots of bad things out there.
Yeah.
And it is found and returned home, which of course, as we both know,
I know, cats are tough.
When they disappear, generally you don't find them again.
I know it. I have I have cats that come in from rescue, and unless the way we're set up, I used to have a 3-car garage that went down to a 2-car garage that's now a 1-car garage and it hasn't seen a car in
Yes,
12
how many
years.
years?
It's heated like the rest of the house, but I've got a cat door where they come and go.
Right.
And unless I had that, I could not continue, because feral cats, I do a lot of work with ferals.
Right.
That, you know, it's a tough thing. I'm also the crazy woman who's, well, no, I'm not crazy. Drop that mouse, drop it. And cats are usually faster than I am.
Yeah.
Or the bird, or I'll resort to putting bells around the neck or whatever.
I
But
know.
it's tough because they love nature. They're 6 inches away from, you know, the ground that smells so good to them. It's a tough call.
And they're wired to hunt. They're
Yeah.
to stalk, to pounce. And I was reading one naturalist who said, look, we've taken away their sexuality. We spay and neuter them. We declaw them. Now you're saying they can't hunt? Well, I say there are ways that they can exercise and hunt.
You know, we're getting okay. We just got the word. We've got to wrap it up and say goodbye. I cannot thank you enough for coming down. And you know what? This was way too short. Would you come again?
Absolutely.
Please, would you talk to your veterinarian, because the stories you were sharing before,
Right.
I would love to feature somebody like that.
Great.
And Biscuit?
Biscuit.
Biscuit?
Oh, he says, oh, this TV stuff he just tires me out, all these lights.
I definitely want to get the picture that you sent of Biscuit editing your book last night. Okay.
Yeah, down by the pond,
Down
his
by the
favorite
pond.
place.
Thank you very much for watching For the Animals. And if you have any suggestions on topics that you'd like to see covered, please do shoot us an email or give us a call. The contact info is on the screen. Thank you very much, and join us again next week.
At dusk, there came a turning. There was a moment when all was known. You could feel beauty rising on the breeze, the shapes, the stone. And I would ride on